Welcome to the Creative Tools Podcast. My name is Ashay, and I'm immensely passionate about using technology for creativity. On this podcast, I talk to various creators about what tools and technology they use to be creative. My guest today is Josh Cristensen. Josh is an artist, designer, and woodworker based in California's Central Valley and has a design company called J. Wilder Design. In his day to day operations, he utilizes various forms of specialized technology, tools, and procedures to help create hardwood furniture, home, and personal accessories. Hey Josh, thanks for visiting my podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So let's dive right in. My first question is, what do you create?
So I'm a woodworker. So I create custom furniture like dining tables, coffee tables, pantries, and desks. I do also a lot of smaller things like cutting and serving boards, signs, and I'm actually starting to get into wood jewelry. It's a new thing for me, so it's something I'm starting to explore a little bit.
That's great. So I'm a filmmaker, so whenever I make films, my creation process goes through like 3 steps. One is pre-production, then production, and post-production. So
Sure.
While talking to you for these creations of yours, I also want to follow kind of that approach. So I want to understand first, before you start creating, what happens in the pre-creation process, and I want to kind of focus on how do you the inspiration that you get to create something, how do you record that inspiration, and how do you retrieve it when you want to create something?
So actually, I think social media is a big thing for me. The woodworking community is really big on Instagram in particular. So I take a lot of inspiration from other woodworkers and what they're doing and techniques they're using. Not so much in terms of the design, but just how they're actually going about creating their pieces. That for sure. I think as far as the design aesthetic, I think Pinterest is another big one just to see kind of what's trending, what people are into, and what's going out of trend. Sometimes a different it's a different type of wood or a different color or a different shape or something. So that for sure. And also just I just take a lot of photos. I mean, with my phone when I'm out, if I see something in nature or architecture or something that I find interesting, I'll take a video or I'll take a photo. And I might not have anything in mind, any vision for it in the moment, but I try to document as much as I can because I know that I can always pull from that later. And I go through it regularly. If I'm trying to come up with something for myself or a product I'm trying to release to the market, I'll go through that, look for patterns or something in the movement or the colors or the shapes that inspires me for that.
So this is really great because you said that you go through your recorded inspirations regularly. So do you do that only when you feel that you want to create something, or irrespective of whether you want to create something or not, you just go through your inspirations?
I just go through it all the time because I think sometimes it sparks an idea sometimes that I might not. I don't necessarily sit down and say I want to make this type of board or this table or something, and now I'm going to look through my photos that I've taken. I just like to do it. I just like to go back and look through all that. So I might see something that in the moment I didn't see, or I'll see a combination. Well, this pattern is really beautiful with this shape of this building or something. So that might be interesting for a table design or or a piece of artwork or something even. So it's I just enjoy that process anyway. It's a habit really that I've kind of formed, I think, over time.
Great. And then you said you when you take pictures and when you when you see inspiration, or you try to record as much as possible about it. So what do you have like a template or any kind of notepad or anything like that you use to record, or it's the picture is only the manifestation of that, and then everything else is in your memory?
It's really that. It's the photo is the picture says 1,000 words, I think, that old saying. So I keep a special album on my phone, so it's easy for me to find, and it's literally just a grid of all these different patterns, shapes, and colors. And every once in a while, I'll take a specific note. You know, I'll just jot it down on the notes on my phone or something. I saw this. This might be interesting for this design, or but for the most part, it's just a gallery that I keep. And sometimes I don't use it. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes that image doesn't do anything for me. But my feeling is if it moves me in any way, or if it sparks something in me in the moment, it's worth documenting because you never know. And I know it's like a lot of people, you might have an idea at 3 a.m. and you wake up and you jot it down on a notepad, and you might never do anything with it. But it's the same thing for me with the photos that I take.
And I understand that when you said that, okay, it sparks something, or it moves you, and then you record it. But then do you try to record what you felt as well when you took that image, and then maybe that can inspire you later, or it's the image and probably the Instagram or social media images that you only record and that's it?
Oh, no, I definitely take notes. I have a list I keep, and I'll say, I'll put it in parentheses or something after it. Here's this idea I have, and it's this photo I took at this location on this day, and that's what, if I want to reference that again, because if otherwise I might read that note later on and say, I have no idea what this
Correct.
is.
Yeah.
So I definitely do reference those, and I do keep notes. I would say it's about 50-50.
Okay.
I don't always take notes, but they're important, definitely, and I definitely have gone back and referenced those for some products that I've designed or some patterns that I've come up with. So it's definitely helpful, and it's definitely a tool that I use every day.
So I was actually talking to a sculptor yesterday, and then he said that whenever I see something, I try to also write notes about the environment around me at that time. Like, what did I smell, or like what did I, what did I feel, and he just goes with his notepad everywhere and then just writes that down. So that's why I was asking these questions, like, what attributes of the environment that also do you also record the attributes of the environment around you when the inspiration hit you?
Oh yeah, because sometimes if you don't, I feel like it can just get lost in the void. And like I
Right.
said, you look at it months down the road and go, "What was I thinking? What is
Yeah.
like? I have no idea where this is coming from," and you just toss it. But it could have been a great idea. So yeah.
So the notes that you mentioned, I understand it's 50-50, but the notes that you mentioned that you take, is that on your phone, or do you do like handwritten notes?
It's mostly on my phone. There's a depending on where I'm going, I actually have a notebook. It's called a Rocket Book. It's like a reusable notepad that I can then. So it's basically just like jotting on it's almost like a whiteboard, but it's a piece of paper. So you jot with a special pen, and then you can take a photo of it. It comes with an app, so then that photo just translates straight to that app.
Oh, okay.
And then I can wipe the page clean and reuse it again. So it's I can go into the app later on and check again a couple months down the road and say, here are these handwritten notes that I have, or this little sketch that I did out in the world. It's super useful because it doesn't waste a lot of paper, and it's this little thing that I can carry around with me.
What
I
is
don't
it
have
called?
stacks. It's called Rocket Book.
Rocket Book. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, they have different sizes, and it's been super helpful with me, even with client meetings and stuff. I can go out and jot down a note or do a little sketch for them or something. I can upload it to the app, so it's in the cloud, and then I can just wipe it clean, and I don't have to carry around these thick notebooks that I have on bookshelves everywhere. So it's
and then do you tag as well when you do a sketch? Do you add any particular tag or anything to it so that you can find that sketch later?
Yeah, so it actually allows you can categorize things too to specific depending on what it is. And I always just make a little note of who it's for, or what it was, or where it's from. So I can easily reference. I just do it in the corner or something, so I can easily reference it that way. No, it's a super helpful tool, and I'm one of these sort of organized chaos people. I mean, you don't look at my desk right now because
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I know where everything is, but that's been something that's really helped keep me organized. With instead of having a million pieces of paper everywhere, which can get pretty crazy sometimes. So
And this Rocket Book you were talking about, does it also transform your handwritten text into like actual text that you can search for it later?
I think it does do that. I don't quote me on that though, because I've never used it, but I feel like when I was looking into it, I think that was an option. Yeah, it
Hmm.
can translate it into something, into a text document or something.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. And but then whenever you save from that, whenever you save that to cloud, that only gets saved in its app, or it gets saved in your like photos app on your phone,
It's just saved in their app. Yeah,
in their
and then
app.
I can,
Okay.
but then I can transfer that. You can actually set it up. You let me backtrack a little bit. You can set it up so that it saves to say Google Drive
Hmm.
or what's the other one? Dropbox, if you have Dropbox, or you can email it to yourself.
Hmm.
If you have employees, you can email it to your employees. So they have these different little icons. Um, so you scan the photo, you go in the app, and you can say, I want to save this to Google Drive.
Hmm.
Or this one, or in this case, I want to email this to everyone involved in the project. You can just do it directly from this app. But it also saves it within the app, so you can download it to your phone later if you want to. So it's super well organized. It's one of the best. I kind of stumble on it. It's like $30. It's this cheap tool, and it does so many cool things. Um, it's I definitely. And this is not. I'm not like paid by or anything, but this is it. I recommend it highly for anyone who's any sort of creative industry, because you just stick it in your bag, or
Hmm.
stick it in your pocket or whatever. They have different sizes, and I just found out about it a few months ago, and I use it almost every day. So
Hmm. That's
yeah,
great. This is
yeah,
new information, and this was really helpful.
yeah.
Um, okay, so next question is, so let's now focus our attention to the creation part.
Sure.
So for actually creating the stuff that you are creating, what tools and technology do you use?
So I actually they're mostly specialized tools for woodworking. I would say the most frequently used would be, I have a CNC router. Um, it's a small footprint. It's about 4 feet by 4 feet, but I use that a lot for basically things that you know I I would uh, task to an employee if I had one. So it's almost like having an employee in a way. I can set things up in this, so it's whether it's a pattern I want to cut out, a specific shape or something, or if I need something done precisely or something repeatable. So if for example, with the jewelry, if I'm making a lot of little pendants or something, I want them to be exactly the same, exactly, very clean. I'll stick that material in the machine, set it. It goes for a couple hours, and I can be nearby doing something else.
Hmm.
So it's really ramped up my production capabilities, and also just what I'm able to do and provide for my own products and for custom work for customers. It's you know any shape I want, I can put in there. I do a lot of engraving. Some of my boards that I do, I make this thing called a margarita board. So it's basically a cutting board with a circular pocket cut into it. You put your rimming salts in there. So I can set those boards up in the machine, let the tool do its thing while I'm off, you know, working on the business or working on some other
Hmm.
project nearby. And I can check in on it whenever I need to. I can pause it and make adjustments. So it's that, I would say, that's running constantly in the shop. Um, Otherwise, things like, it sounds kind of mundane, but this, sanding and woodworking is one of the banes of our existence. Nobody likes it. But so any tool or technology you can use to speed that up, or just make it less strenuous on your body or your mind, even it's boring.
Hmm. Hmm.
Put it that way. So like a drum sander I picked up recently that It's basically a machine. It auto feeds your material through and it sands it for you. You
Hmm.
still have to put it in, but once you put it in, you walk away. You take it out when it's done, and it's a pretty quick process. But it's got all these. They're always coming up with upgrades. Like there's this thing called IntelliSand in the one that I have. So if you set the speed a little bit too fast, or you set the depth of cut for the sandpaper a little too deep, it'll blink at you and let you know that it's bogging down the machine or the motor. So it's basically a protective device to increase the longevity of the tool.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
a lot of older tools, you could, it was easy to burn them out, burn the motors out from using them incorrectly or being too aggressive with them. So you're starting to see a lot of integrations into woodworking tools more and more that they prolong the life of it. They make your life easier as the user, um, and they're just, they actually they create a better finish quality on it too. So you're maximizing your efficiency. You're not burning yourself out. You're getting a better finish. You're getting a better product, um, and that's the case for a lot of different tools in this industry that you're starting to see come out more and more.
So
It's like with every phone release, there's a new app that comes out with it, or a new
right.
camera upgrade or something. It's the same with woodworking tools. They're always adding these little bits of technology that just make your life a whole lot easier.
But then, how does the tool, your CNC router, how does it know what to print or what to create? Like, do you have it? Is it connected like to a software where you
Yeah,
upload your
so
design?
most of them, depending on the brand you have, they come with a native software. It's basically like a CAD, computer aided drafting
Right.
software, native to that machine. So you plug in your design, whatever, if it's a shape or a word you want to cut, whatever it is, and it translates that. They're called tool paths that you set up. Depends. So you put in a different type of bit for a different type of
Right.
operation, and then the software translates that into what's called G code, and then you take that to another bit of software at the machine, plug that in, and the machine translates that G code onto the material.
Hmm.
So you set up it's called a 0 point. So it's basically like a home base. So you set your, you set your bit to that 0 point. You hit go, and then based on the feed rate you've plugged in, the speed you want the machine to move at, depending on the bit type, the material you're cutting. These things can cut. A lot of the time when people think CNC, they think, I think, metal machining.
Hmm.
So metal parts for uh, uh, factory machines and auto parts and stuff like that. But it can do a lot of other things. It can do wood, which is what I do. It can do acrylic. So depending on what material you're cutting, you set different feed speeds. So it translates what you've plugged into the software onto the material, and with, you know amazing accuracy. And I hate to say it's like the perfect employee, but it's like it doesn't make a mistake ever. So you know it's just you plug it in, and you keep an eye on it in case something might go wrong here and there, just in case. But for the most part, it's sort of plug and play. Um,
So one thing that I'm really passionate about, and talking to people about it, is what digital technology has given us is digital technology has given an immense power to creators to make a choice rather than a decision. And when I
right.
say that, I mean, initially when everything was analog, um, if you put a stroke of paint on a canvas, and if you wanted to try a variation of it, you had to use another canvas and you had to put another paint. But if you uh, do that in a digital environment, you can make a copy of it, you can change its form, change its color, and now you have a choice to choose from what you like. So for your designs, I know that the final product is something that you can touch, which is a tangible product. But before that, when you make those designs in the software, how do you allow yourself to try different variations digitally first to see what would look best and then feed it to the software? I mean, do you do that in when you make those designs digitally?
Yeah. So in terms of the CNC specifically, there is also rendering capabilities within the software. So I can,
Hmm.
3D rendering capabilities. So I can you start out with the 2D design and you set, when you set all of your feeds and speeds and your depth of cut and everything, it's still a 2D plane that you're
Right.
looking at. But you can render that, so you can say, okay, at least I get the sense of the shape and maybe some of the lines and the curves on it, the depth. It's obviously blown up on the screen, so if it's a miniature piece, it's hard to tell until I actually do it. But yeah, you can definitely go. I do it all the time. You go back and forth. Sometimes if it's a larger piece of furniture, I use SketchUp a lot as well to do my 3D renderings, 3D modeling for those. So I'll do a rough 3D model in SketchUp, and then I'll go into the CNC software and I'll say, okay, well, this is the practical way of how I would do it, based on whatever the limitations or the capabilities of the machine. And then you kind of go back and forth. Okay, well, if I shrink it a little bit, now I translate that in SketchUp and say, okay, this is how that part's going to look. So there's definitely a lot of planning that goes into it before I actually do the first cut. And even, if I'm doing, let's say it's a wooden earring, for example, and I have, for example, one of them I'm doing right now is a lightning bolt. It's a small lightning bolt. So what I'll do is I'll just get a scrap piece of material that it's not the final design, it's not the final pattern. I cut it to the size and thickness I want, and I'll do 10 different variations on that piece. So I'll go and I'll plug in the design. I'll save the different G code based on the parameters I've plugged in, and then I can see in real time, okay, this doesn't work, but this one does. So I can go back and I can adjust that easily in the software. So, and sometimes it's a very, very, very minor adjustment, but it's necessary, and you definitely don't just plug something in and go for it, because
right.
It could be a total disaster that way. Whether it doesn't come out right, or it looks wrong, or it's the wrong size. So having that software and that ability to really dictate all that before you put the tool to the wood is really, really helpful.
And has it ever happened to you that whatever you have created itself became an inspiration for something that you would create in future?
Oh yeah, it's sometimes it'll, if it's a board I've done, sometimes it'll translate into a table design, whether it's a shape or the patterns or the wood combinations or something. Actually, the earrings I'm just talking about now, there's a type of board that is common, that I do a lot, but I've taken the patterns from that and I've translated. I've almost miniaturized it into these things, and I wouldn't be able to do that without the CNC or the software that I'm using. But because I have this experience with this other type of project, I'm able to look at that differently. And it's like we were talking about earlier with, taking inspiration.
Right.
It's even photos of some of my previous work that I take sometimes, and I look and I
Correct.
go, I could do something. Oh, you sort of put two and two together and you go, I could make this with what I've been doing already. And all it is you're just kind of shrinking that process a little bit.
Right.
And again, I didn't think that way until I had some of these tools, because it just wasn't practical or possible.
Right. So how do you record your own creations? I mean, do you keep like a copy of it, like physical copy somewhere, or you take pictures and keep them in like a separate album or something like that?
If it's a product that so I do a lot of markets, and I do wholesaling, and I sell direct to consumer. So if it's a product line that I have, then yeah, I have a physical copy of it, or two, depending on what it is. If it's a custom piece for a client, I take a lot of really detailed, videos or photos of it. I take notes. I keep the drafting of it with, specific measurements. I'll keep the SketchUp model of it with specific notes. And I just basically keep a catalog of that. So, if it ever comes up again, then I can just go straight to it and say, well, here's how I did this. So it in that way, it kind of makes these custom projects repeatable, even though, there's not always the opportunity to do that specific thing again. But definitely, especially with my own products, I try to create these processes and documentation so that I can make them repeatable. And it's just I can do it in my sleep almost after a while. And I think that's the goal, as a small business. I try to find that balance. I can have these things that I can just pump out, and get out to people, do it markets or wholesale them, but it still allows me the wiggle room to be creative with the custom work as well.
And how do you document this? Like how the catalog, your own catalog, how do you document it?
I mean, it's just photos and videos on my phone, and then I use an app for the videos. I use an app called CapCut. Super easy to import things, and you can make a time lapse out of it, do whatever you want to do. And then I save that to a separate album. So like I was talking about before, I have my inspiration album, and then I have my process album, and then I have my finished product album. I use the Rocketbook. Also, I do little sketches of and little notes as far as while I'm working on it. So this is how many pieces I needed, and these are the dimensions. This was the specific steps I took to achieve this. I upload that and keep that on the drive. So it's just a series of albums, and on different devices. I try to keep them in one place. They're not always in one place, but
do you feel a challenge? Do you feel a challenge to record this information? Because I feel it all the time. Like whatever I create, I would love to keep a record of everything that I'm trying out and creating, but it becomes a little bit too much after a while.
Oh yeah, it's a challenge for sure, and I struggled with it a lot earlier on when I started this business. I'm getting better at it. It's still a challenge, but I am getting better. I've just gotten used to especially if it's a new process or something I'm trying out. I've just tried to get into the habit of setting up. I use my phone, but I set up my phone on a tripod and I just record what I'm doing. And at the very least, I can go back and if I forget something, I can look through it. I don't always have time to do that, but definitely in the beginning, you get so focused, and I'm sure you're, as a creator, you're the same. You get so focused on the task at hand and what you're doing, and you get so into it, you just forget about all that other stuff, about documenting or taking notes or whatever. And then later on, you look back, oh man, how did I do that? What did that like? So it definitely is a challenge, but I'm working on it. Let's put it that way. I'm working on it.
Yeah. Great. Now let's talk about the post creation part. So your creations are ready. How do you release them into the world? And what I mean by release is release from yourself. Like you are not going to make any changes to it. So how do you release? How do you distribute? And how do you market your creations? And what tools and technology do you use for that?
It's a lot of social media. I think that's just kind of the reality today in these days. For most small business owners, Instagram is big. Facebook is still actually pretty good for me. So it's just I release, Instagram specifically. That's where the time lapses come into play. So I use that CapCut app to create time lapses that I can release as a reel on Instagram. I also try to include a finished product photo if there is one. The same thing I do the same thing on Facebook. It feels like I have different clientele, so I try to appeal to both markets. That's the biggest thing. I mean, I do a lot of in-person markets, so there's not a whole lot of, as far as marketing for those goes, it sounds like a stuck record. It's just a lot of social media. Website. I use my website. I have a Shopify website where you can purchase things or order things from me directly.
But then for social media, do you usually maybe like plan your posts or schedule your posts, or you just post whenever you have something ready?
Oh no, I definitely I try to plan them as best as I can. And I release them. I try to be consistent about when and how I release them as well. Specific times of days. I try to do something every day to stay on top of mind for people who are following, or try to grow that following as well and grow that client base. And I'll try. I try to do things in succession. I have an album of, there's hundreds of little snippet videos in there, and so what I try to do is I'll take, it's 3 different ones and do 3 days in a row of here's kind of the steps of this process for this project, and then I'll do the reveal of the final thing at the end, and then just start fresh with the next one. So there's definitely some scheduling that goes into it, and I pay a lot of attention to the insights and the analytics as well.
Hmm.
I think you kind of, in my experience, I think you kind of have to. I think posting randomly
Yeah.
has never worked for me, and I haven't heard of it working for anyone else. So
Right, right. So then when you schedule, how do you schedule? I mean, do you schedule it maybe in a spreadsheet or something that I'm going to do this, 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 and then you put a reminders to yourself to post it, or how do you know to adhere to your own schedule?
yeah, so I just in the notes in my phone, I keep a daily, it's pretty basic and primitive, I guess, but I just keep a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday bullet point list. Here's my day to day, and at the top of every single one is my Instagram reel post 9 a.m. Instagram reel post
Hmm.
8:30, whatever it is, and I set an alarm on my phone for that time every day,
Hmm.
and I just know I base my workday off of a series of alarms, really. So I have one that goes off at 9 o'clock, and I know that that's my Instagram post alarm, and I have another one that goes off at noon, and I know that's my Facebook post alarm or whatever the case may be. So I use my phone for everything.
Hmm.
I find it's the easiest. It just works the easiest for me instead of having to go back and forth between the desktop and using different scheduling software. I've tried scheduling software for social media, and I find it just doesn't. I'm not consistent enough with it. I find it just works better for me to do it right there on my phone. I look at that list all day, every day it's just my to-do list anyway. So I feel like it's right there. Why not just simplify it as much as possible that way?
So, and then that is the schedule for posting, I understand. But then when it is time to post, you already know what you're going to post? Like, do you already have content ready that you can post?
Yeah, yeah. So on Instagram specifically, I usually do, it's reels that I use mostly. So I'll go in and maybe the night before I'll take the video that I'm gonna, from CapCut, I'll take the
Hmm.
video and I'll just create a draft. So if there are captions, or I'll add the music. I'll do my caption and my hashtags and everything below. All my settings. I'll save it as a draft so that when 9 o'clock rolls around the next morning, all I have to do is I literally
Hmm.
just go into the app and hit share,
Hmm.
and it's done. So I try to stay a day or two ahead. Um, uh, but yeah, I very, very, very rarely do it in the heat of the moment.
Right,
It's
right.
just I feel like at that point I haven't really thought it through if that happens, and I'm not really thinking straight. I'm just I don't want to just rush something out. I want it to be quality content, not just content for the sake of
Right,
content. You know what I mean?
right, right.
Yeah.
And then this CapCut thing that you were talking about, is that like a phone app or like a desktop app?
It's a phone app, yeah. So it's basically it's like a pretty full editing software on your phone. And I mainly use it for, you can cut clips together, you can add transitions. I mainly use it for creating the time lapses of my process.
Hmm.
You can speed up and slow down your clips, and it's super slick. I really only use two or three features on it, but it can do a lot. It has a really pretty wide capability
Hmm.
for if you're just doing small videos and things like that. I haven't
Hmm.
tried it for any YouTube length content, but for what I've been using, it's been very helpful.
And when you share, what about the text of the post and hashtags? Like, do you have them ready somewhere that you can just copy paste, or you think about that at the moment?
So the text I try to make relevant to just in the moment, uh, whatever the post is about. I'll try to do a little hook in the beginning, and then my middle paragraph is I go into detail about what specifically is happening.
Hmm.
But I have a list. I keep a list of hashtags that I go through every couple of weeks to update. But basically, my strategy is I have a list of hashtags that have 500,000 to 1,000,000 hits, and then another list that has 250 to 500,000, another one that's under 250,000, the more targeted hashtags. And I just take 3 or 4 from each one. And I found that that's been the best strategy for me. Maybe
Hmm.
I'm sure everyone does it their own way, but for
Hmm.
me, that's been the easiest way to keep it organized and consistent. So I'm not repeating hashtags all the time that way. And um, I'm not just using the same hashtag that's got 85 million hits on it over and over and over again, and I'm going to get lost in the shuffle. So I try to that's definitely been helpful for me, because it's social media for me has also been a challenge, but I feel like I'm finding things that work for me, and I'm getting better and better at it over time, and sort of chipping away at that, growing that following.
So this, I have also observed this, that this kind of like becomes your full. I mean, it has a potential to become like a full time job, because like
Oh yeah.
just publishing to social media itself is like so much time consuming. So have you done any automations or any process improvements with any available technology for it?
I've just been trying to make it about consistency and making it a habit. So I've found that, CapCut helps me. I just get in the habit. So the night before, I spend, a few minutes working on CapCut videos, and then every couple of weeks, I update my hashtag list, and it's just about staying consistent with these tools that I have, these notes, or these apps that I use, and then I just get in the habit.
Hmm.
So it's not so much about these scheduling apps or scheduling software. It's just stay consistent, and make it a part of the schedule every single
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
and just get in the habit of it. Then it feels less overwhelming to me,
Hmm.
at least.
Hmm. Yeah. Great. So one question: what is the biggest challenge you face in your creation process?
Oh man, I think space, time. I work out of a 2-car garage, and it's fine for now, but the goal is to expand eventually, but that kind of limits the size of tools. I would love to have a bigger CNC, but I can't because of the space and just time. I think you get so bogged down with creating inventory or creating custom work, and
Hmm.
there's administrative stuff and social media. It's a 7-day a week job, and
Yeah.
it just kind of, so eventually I'd love to have more space, and maybe some employees as I continue to grow and scale, but for sure, space and time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then, what is your vision for your creations? And what I mean is like how do you see yourself using technology or tools that you see around you to create in future?
I think kind of going off of the space and time thing, I think once I'm able to get myself a larger CNC machine, or a more powerful or faster one, I think being able to scale my work, so I can make things faster, I can make more at a time. I think just being able to scale things in that way, that's kind of my big vision. And I'm actually kind of transitioning right now from large scale furniture down into smaller things like that, like jewelry that I can produce and pump out more. And that's where the larger CNC would come in handy and come into play for sure. So the short version is that's kind of where I see things headed, is to be
Great.
able to grow the footprint of my tools and reduce the size of my product.
Excellent. Thanks, Josh, for visiting my podcast. It was great talking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great chatting.
Thanks for tuning in. If you are a creator, I would love to talk with you. Please connect with me through my website or social media. See you in the next episode.